So looks like we got a couple questions here that we can go over. The first one from Rob Rooney. He wants to know what's more important, the by 1 at 8 or the volume drop-down sets. In the past, he's mostly been focused on the by 1 at 8, which usually led to some ego lifting and overshooting. Lately has been more focused on the volume, after which seems to be better and able to add a little more weight on the bar each set to get relatively close to the top single for the day. So the way I go about it, the by 1 at 8 is there for the benchmarking set. That is there to kind of gauge where your strength levels are on that particular day. As we're all familiar and aware, our strength levels are going to fluctuate a little bit from day to day. So that main by 1 at 8 set is to kind of benchmark where your strength is for that day. And then the back off work is going to be based on how well that by 1 at 8 goes. So I wouldn't necessarily say that one is more important than the other. They're both fairly important, and in terms of gauging your strength and then getting the volume work in. So I suppose the way I approach that then to make sure it gets set up for success is I approach the by 1 at 8 very similar to how I go about competition, right? So typically we consider a by 1 at 8 about 92%. We want to open a competition, generally speaking, about 90%, which is a by 1 at 7.5. So for me, a lot of times, I'll go through my warm-up progressions the exact same way when I'm getting ready for that by 1 at 8. And then I'll aim after my last warm-up, depending on where that goes and how that feels. I'll aim a little heavier than an opener, a little lighter, a bit lighter than a second attempt. And that gets me in line there for that by 1 at 8. Then that usually goes according to plan based on that approach. And then the volume work falls in line after that. I would not recommend adding weight to those volume down sets, particularly if it's going to be a percent-based back-off work. That percent-based back-off work is there for that load to remain at that intensity, and adding more weight is going to increase that intensity, which is going to change the stress in the program, and it might be a little bit harder to recover from. Now, I totally understand that times we get a little bit sucked into wanting to push that by 1 at 8, and we overreach a little bit and can potentially lift with the ego, so to speak. Not only does following that meet day protocol help keep that in line, keep that in check, the other thing that can help with that is looking at weekly progressions. We have a video on our YouTube channel that goes over weekly progressions. If you haven't watched that, I would check that out. But a quick recap on that is basically, if I'm on week 2, I'm going to look back to how I performed on week 1, and I'm going to base my load for that day on how I did last week. So basically, if I was half a RPE under, this week I'm going to aim to take 1 to 2% more. If last week I was right at the RPE protocol, then this week I'm going to aim to take about 1% more. If last week I was half an RPE over, then this week I am going to repeat that weight and try to get the RPE in line and lower. If I am a full RPE over the protocol, then I'm going to want to take about 1 to 2% off and just get a better quality rep, better quality work in. And mostly just try and learn that lesson of overreaching and try to do what I can to avoid that in the future. And knowing that part of the process is to be in line with that by 1 at 8 and be in line with the stress index, and that when I'm wanting to put more on the bar, that's me getting emotional and not being logical about the training. And I'm aware now that being logical about the training and being logical about the training process is going to better suit me in the long run than letting the emotions drive the choice. So just being kind of aware of that when I'm wanting more, I'm getting into that emotional ego state, and I can't just want more on the bar and magically it be there, right? We have to go through that methodical process of taking what's there and building that momentum and building up that staircase, so to speak. Moving on to Tommy's question. He says that he's doing his first pivot week at the moment. He's having some troubles recovering from the circuits. After the first training of the pivot, track had suggested to move the training to the next day. He's had similar experiences in the past that decreasing the intensity and adding volume makes him very sluggish, and it takes a couple of weeks to get back to the grind. So he asks if he should continue doing pivots with circuits or should he do them some other way. So one of the things that I've noticed with lifters who I work with and have given a similar pivot that has that circuit, I think a lot of times people that have troubles with this style of pivot are almost going too hard, right? There's this balance point during a pivot where we want to work hard enough and we want to work hard, but we don't want to work too hard. So if during the circuits, I would say if you're getting more than 6 rounds in the circuit, you're going too hard and too fast. Slow down, take a little bit more rest between the sets. 6 is still even pushing pretty hard. Usually myself, I get about 4 rounds in, sometimes 3, depending on where I'm at. If it's a week where there is a split leg movement and then it's kind of like having 4 exercises in that circuit compared to 3 in a sense, then sometimes I'll only get 3. But 4 is about my floating average. I think the most that I've ever got in was 5, and I was about to do a little more, and it was a lot. It was tough. So I think the sweet number average is probably right around 4. Something like that might help reduce that soreness that you're probably experiencing. I think that it's pretty common that a lot of times we experience more DOMs during the pivot than we do the actual development work, just based on that. Oh, whoa, I just see you got 9 rounds during the last circuit. Yeah, that's insane, man. I think that's like, that might be the most that I've heard so far. So yeah, I would definitely back off that a little bit, and you'll feel a little bit less like death. Because the other suggestion was going to be if the pivots continue, or if the circuits continue to be problematic in that you were feeling hit by a truck, you might consider, you could make the adjustment of just doing, 4 sets of each exercise. And you could superset them and not put a time cap on it and just kind of go at your own pace. The intent behind having it done in that circuit with that time cap is mostly just to get some energy system work, get a bit of conditioning in there as well. So there's that adjustment. I know there's times when, depending on my training environment, if it wasn't one that allowed me to do the circuit, then I would just break them up and do 1 exercise at a time and just do, like 4 sets of 10 basically, or whatever it ended up being at that percentage and intensity. So there's that adjustment that can be made. If it's not the circuit work that's necessarily the problem, if maybe there's a lot of DOMs from the 10 at 7 and 10 at 8, you could look at doing a reduction and doing by 8 at 7 and by 8 at 8. That slight intensity increase can help with that as well, and sometimes we find that helps with strength retention. So if you're also experiencing a big drop in strength at the start of the next development block, that's a good adjustment to make on the pivot, is drop the 10s down to 8s. You could go as low as 7s maybe even 6s, but on that particular style with the circuits, we don't usually go that low. So there is that. That's all the questions there are on there at the moment. So if any of you guys out there watching have any other questions, post them up. Otherwise, I think I'll go back to this other video that Rob Rooney posted here and talk about it for a moment, since it's there and it's in the group. He did this 250 kilo 2-inch deficit beltless pull. Says he's pretty pumped about it, which, yeah, it's a nice pull, man. It's a good job. Mostly just wanted to comment here. Mike had made the comment there that it looked like there's a little bit of slight rollback towards the shins, and asked if he tried setting up a little bit closer. So obviously, like, the intent with the deadlift is we want to get as vertical of bar path as possible. So in order to do that, really the setup, what we want to do is we want the bar to be centered over the midpoint of the foot. Now, if we take the foot, and a lot of times when we look down at the foot, we only see, you know, this much of the foot. The other part is kind of behind the leg. So a lot of people will split that part that they see in half, and that actually puts the bar a little bit further out from where is optimal. So if we set up a little bit closer to the bar so that the bar is truly splitting the midfoot in half, that's going to get us close enough. A way to kind of feel that out as well is when you're going to initiate the pull and you want to take all the slack out of the system. You want to take the slack out of the bar. You know, if it's a noodly bar, there's going to be the bend in the bar. You want to take that slack out. There could be slack in if the circle inside the plate is bigger than the actual barbell end, and there's slack in there. You pull that out. There's slack in the body, so we want to get fully tensioned to the point where ideally we should be able to make around 2 times our body weight float just by setting that pre-tension into the start position. So if we do that, that's going to want to bring the barbell in, and you'll feel that float in on you. So that will help teach and learn that start position in a good manner if we really work on taking the slack out of the bar, taking the slack out of the body, and really fully pre-tension the system and make the bar float prior to actually initiating the leg drive and pushing down on the floor. Obviously, as the load gets heavier and over 2 times your body weight along those lines, the bar will stop actually floating. The weight will stop leaving the ground, but the slack will still come out of the system wherever that may exist in the body or in the barbell itself. The other thing to look at in your video with that too is look from the side. Now, you want the barbell to split the midfoot in half, and the barbell should be just behind the shoulder, so where it's at the scapula and not in front. And that's going to get everything into a nice vertical bar path and in alignment. Once you get that, then it's going to be a more efficient pull. The more efficient you can make the pull, the more load you should be able to put on the barbell. You guys out there that are watching, anybody got any questions here before I decide to wrap it up and call it a session? Alright, well, it doesn't look like there's anything else coming in. One other thing that I thought about that I was thinking about throwing out there for y'all. Some of you might have noticed and have talked to me or one of the other coaches. At some point, we do periodic reviews of the guided programming E1RMs. And a lot of times, you know, if your E1RMs are trending nicely, we leave it alone. We don't say anything. If it looks like there's some problems, we'll reach out to you and see, you know, oh, what's going on? Do we feel like it's programming response, or do we feel like there's life interferences, you know, flu? Who knows? From my experiences in doing those reviews, if it's not something outside of the gym that's impacting what the E1RMs are doing and what the strength looks like, the biggest error that lifters are making is in that overreaching aspect and going a little bit too hard, and they're consistently half an RPE over and consistently half an RPE over on not just the competition exercises, but a lot of the other accessory and supplemental exercises. And there's always this nice immediate uptick in E1RMs and better feeling physically recovered from the training when the lifter then just brings it down just a little bit. It's one of those things where that 5% less is 10% more. So just remember to do your best to stay within the protocols of the program, and don't get distracted by other things. And when you're, again, like I mentioned, when you're like wanting more weight on the bar, try and remember and recognize that that's like that emotional state. And look, I get it too. I also want more weight on the bar. But we have to understand that to get what we want to stay within those protocols and execute the programming and execute the process of the movements. And doing those two things together is going to be what leads to putting more weight on the bar and getting us what we want, rather than just wanting it and going crazy. So that's what I got for y'all today. We'll see you all next time. Happy training.